Welcome back to Torah in 10. What's the life-changing idea from Rabbi Sacks this week? Know your own story. A story across the generations is a gift of an identity. And when you know who you are and why, you can navigate the wilderness of time with courage and confidence. Every night, after I read my 8-year-old son Miller a story, he says, "Tell me a story." At first, I said, "I just did." He says, "No, tell me a story about you and Abba." So very often, there's a story after the story. He loves the stories that I tell about my husband, about my life, anything about my past, and about our dogs that we had years ago. He loves all of it. What's the power of a story? A story doesn't just give over a teaching, and it certainly doesn't bring us down. In fact, it's just the opposite. A good story has the power to raise us up to a different level. It can give us what we need most. It can give us strength. A good story does more than just give us moral instruction or warn us about the consequences of our mistakes. It gives us an example of someone who is struggling just like we are. But in the end, it's amazing. He or she succeeds in accomplishing just what they are striving for. So we think, if this person can do it, maybe I can too. And it gives us the strength to try again. Stories have the unbelievable ability to take us back to the beginning. As the holy Rizhiner Rebbe says, how does the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, begin? With the master of the world telling us stories. In the beginning sounds a lot like once upon a time. One of the most important parts of Judaism is the act of remembering, Yizkor. More than it has a history, the Jewish people has memory. There is no word for history in Tanakh, and modern Hebrew had to borrow one, historia. But the word zachor, remember, occurs no fewer than 169 times in the Torah. The difference between them is this: history is someone else's story. Memory is my story. In history, we recall what happened. Through memory, we identify what happened so that it becomes part of us and who we are. History is the story of the past. Memory is the story of the future. We find in this week's Parsha something strange. Just days before their release, Moses is addressing the Israelites. They have been in exile for 210 years. They've gone from affluence to bitter slavery and genocide. After witnessing Hashem's awesome power through the plagues, through signs and wonders, he brought the most powerful country in the ancient world to its knees, and the Israelites are about to go free. What does Moses talk about? He doesn't talk about freedom or a land filled with milk and honey. 3 times he speaks about the distant future, when the journey is complete and the people free at last are in their own land. But he doesn't speak about the land or the society that they will have to build. Instead, Moses speaks about education, specifically the duty of parents to children. He speaks about the questions they may ask, about the epic moments that have happened and that are about to happen, meaning the splitting of the sea, the death of the Egyptians, and revelation at Sinai, which will be by then a distant memory. Moses tells the Israelites to do what Jews have done from then until now. A few years ago, when we could have family at our Seders, I remember getting into a conversation about why are we having a Seder in the first place? Someone answered, because that's what you're supposed to do. That's what Jews do. But I said, why? They answered, I really don't know. I told them, Moses said, tell your children the story. Do it in the maximum effective way. Reenact the drama of the exile and exodus, slavery to freedom. Get your children to ask questions. Make sure you tell them the story as if it's your own and not a history lesson. Say that the way we live and the ceremonies we observe are because of what God did for me, not for my ancestors, but for me. Make it vivid, personal. Bring it alive for them. Part of our Pesach Seder every year, I make a splitting of the sea Seder table. I drape these blue tinsel curtains on either side of the dining room, and we attach little fish. And as our guests arrive, I ask my children to say, "Follow me to freedom," and they walk them through the sea to the Seder table. Why is this the most important thing Moses could do at this most historical moment of redemption? Rabbi Sacks says, because freedom is the work of a nation. Nations need identity. Identity needs memory, and memory is handed down through stories. Without stories, we have no memory, and without memory, we have no identity. The most powerful link between the generations is the story of those who came before us. Their story becomes ours, and we hand it down to the next generation so that it becomes theirs. The story we have been passing down generation after generation provides the answer to 3 fundamental questions each of us must ask ourselves at some point in our lives. Number 1, who am I? Number 2, why am I here? Number 3, how then shall I live? There are many answers to this question. Rabbi Sacks offers his. I am the member of a people of whom God rescued from slavery and brought to freedom. I'm here to build a society that honors the freedom of others, not just my own. I must live in conscious knowledge that freedom is a gift by honoring his covenant with love. The greatest gift we can give our children is not money or possessions, but a story, a real story, one that connects them to us and to a rich heritage of very high ideals. We are heirs to a story that inspired 100 generations of our ancestors and eventually transformed the whole world. Looking back to over 3,000 years ago, we can see how Moses was so right. A story across the generations is the gift of an identity. When you know who you are and why, you can navigate the wilderness of time with courage and confidence. And that is a life-changing idea we can all use. Thank you so much.